very glad to be here. Thanks for the invitation. I'll do a quick overview of what we spoke about yesterday, so that we are all on the same page, and then I'll move to speaking about the next floor of blockchain evolution, what I called before the centralized computer, and then finally to a third floor, which is more about the decentralized organization, which is, I think, is also the most interesting topic for this forum, and generally my preferred topic. So, by the way, I forgot to tell you yesterday, the picture, if you recognize the picture in the first slide is from Shanghai, if you recognize. And the reason I put it is, well, not because I just came back from there, but because we just had in Shanghai the annual blockchain week, the international annual blockchain week in Shanghai. It basically was around the annual conference of the Ethereum project. And Ethereum is, although it's just one project in a space, it's perhaps the most important project today in the blockchain space. It's basically the project that invented blockchain 2.0, which I will tell you about now. Since then, many projects have followed. So now there are many kind of competitors or alternatives to Ethereum, but still Ethereum is the biggest of all and kind of most promising platform. Just for your curiosity, to understand how crazy this space is, Ethereum was invented by a 19-year-old kid 4 years ago, three years ago. Now he's 22. Just to understand how revolutionary this project is, he invented the project. He created a huge movement around it. They have raised from the crowds, from the public, they have raised through the tokens of the platform, they've raised $18 million. And since then, the project was so successful that today the market cap of that project is over $1 billion, managed by a 22-year-old child. So that's the Ethereum project, and it's revolutionary and quite amazing. So I will tell you today about that project. And again, if you have any questions, please feel free to interrupt me, stop anything. We don't have to cover anything, so we'll just go following your interests. Okay, so we spoke about phases of humanity, about organizations, about the ambiguity of organization, the good thing of it, the potential cooperation of it, the bad thing, the misalignment of interest. We spoke about the challenges of coordination, information distribution, economy, trust. I gave you the mantra. My mantra, centralized organization is always in tension with scale and is always leading to asymmetry of power that we can see in the world everywhere we go. I slightly told you about the first trials of the last 50 years to distribute things away, the open market economy, the so to say free internet. I told you about prisoner's dilemma, that we are all trapped in, that we're all non-cooperating, and we will all be better if we were cooperating, but it's very hard for us to move from non-cooperation state into cooperation state because it's not beneficial to do so if we do that alone. We need to do that all together, and then it's beneficial for us, but that's hard to coordinate. So, and that's what the blockchain basically is able to achieve, is to incentivize good action. So, yeah, I told you a little bit about the Internet of Value and the decentralized autonomous organizations. And then I started to tell you about blockchain 1.0, which is basically, I'm just reminding, it's kind of like this imaginary, esoteric whiteboard that lives out there, that everybody can read that whiteboard or that Google Sheet. Everybody can read that Google Sheet. And everybody can also print on that Google Sheet, but only according to predefined rules. So if, for example, this whiteboard, this Google Sheet, is just a tracking system for assets. So maybe I have one apple, so it says Matan, one apple, and Thomas has 2 apples, and it says Thomas, 2 apples, etc., etc. And then this whiteboard allow me to transfer my assets. So I just now want to transfer transact my apple to Pablo. So I just click a button and I make the transaction. And the crazy thing, the magical thing, is that everyone in the world will see that I've just transacted my apple to Pablo, and will agree that I've just transacted the apple to Pablo. So that's the crazy thing. And I mean, the reason why it's so crazy is because that database that keeps tracking, keeps updating, that database doesn't live anywhere, or actually it lives everywhere. It doesn't live in one place. That's what makes it distributed. That's what makes it decentralized. That's what distributing the power to the edges, to the network, to everyone, because no one is controlling that database anymore. So that's basically blockchain 1.0. And that's very good for, or useful for tracking and transacting of digital asset of all kind. I told you about, it can be digital cash, like Bitcoin itself, which was inventing the blockchain. It can be tracking of diamonds, tracking of weapons, tracking of shipments. It can be tracking of tickets to movies, or tracking of your car. It can be used for land registry, for car registry, for everything you can think of, basically. And all these use cases are already implemented, and as a whole, this class that I call blockchain 1.0 is already appearing in its early product stage. And we will now move on to the next class, which is now evolving, which is blockchain 2.0, and that's roughly at the prototype stage. So we see things coming up, but it's still very much in the early days. And I hope I will try to cover it quickly, or I will try to, not quickly, but I'll try to cover it in a way that will allow us also to get to the third chapter, which is blockchain 3.0, which I think is the most interesting chapter for this audience, and which is still in the research stage, which speaks about collective intelligence, decentralized communities, decentralized corporations, etc. And mostly about value systems. Okay, so we've covered that. I gave you homework. If any of you have opened, you'll just need to open. What we call as an address, digital cryptographic address. I can tell you how to open that. Once you open that, I can send you some bitcoins, and then you can play with it. You can see how it works. Yeah, and we finished the talk of yesterday, speaking very shortly about the other side of the token. So I told you that this blockchain 1.0 thing can track records, right? It can allow people on their side to move records. And finally, it allows the whole network collectively to assign new records for some people that are doing valuable actions. So the interesting thing that I ended with is the distributing value. So now the technology can also distribute value. So you ask who decides that? That's a good question. Who decides about anything? And the answer is that the first answer, the blockchain 1.0, is the software, the code that is in the software decides, plus the actions of people, okay? So, for example, in Bitcoin, there is no person to decide. Everything is decided by the code. It's already predefined to begin with. There is a game, and you can participate in the game or not participate in the game. But once participating, it's well defined how the game will evolve, okay? That's blockchain 1.0. But it can also allow for distribution of value. So, for example, in the Bitcoin network, the valuable thing is to sustain the network. So all those miners, all those people that are called miners, not under 18, miners like mining coal. So they are mining Bitcoins. And they are running softwares all over the globe that maintain that network. And that's crucial for that network. Because it's crucial, it should be incentivized economically, and for that reason, every 10 minutes, some new Bitcoins are printed and distributed to the miners. Okay? So by having that system, notice that we have defined what is valuable and what we want to compensate and what we want to incentive and basically to affect that will happen. And which takes us to blockchain 2.0. Blockchain 1.0, the whole system, the rules of the game are what we call hard-coded, okay? The difference between hard-coded and soft-coded. For example, in a computer, you have a hardware and you have a software. So that's the same thing. I mean, eventually, the hardware is kind of a code, but it's a code that you cannot change. It's hard-coded to the system. You cannot replace, well, if you want to replace it, you need to take out the computer and put back a new engine. You cannot just write a program to change the hardware, okay? In the same fashion, analogous to that, the network, I put a software on my computer, you put a software on your computer, you put a software on your computer. Once all of us put that software, it's very hard to replace the software because you don't need to replace the software in one place. You need to replace the software all over the globe. So in that sense, it's hard-coded. It's not easily replaceable, okay? So the rules of the game in blockchain 1.0 are hard-coded. What this 19 years old bright kid came with is that you can actually build the infrastructure, the blockchain, you can build in a way that you can program the next rules of the game for the next blockchain. So that you hard code just the infrastructure once. That's what Ethereum does. And now I can create a new instance of blockchain and I can write scripts. I can write programs to dictate the rules of the game for that blockchain. So it's a blockchain platform kind of thing. Okay? It's basically the same analogy of a calculator. If you have a calculator, it can do some calculations, right? But that's all it can do, right? You cannot change the functionality of the calculator that you have, right? And a computer. A computer, you can write code and write program and design applications and websites, and you can do new things. Calculator, you cannot do. It has only one functionality and you cannot change it. So the same thing is the difference between blockchain 1.0 and 2.0. Blockchain 1.0 can do one thing and that's it. Blockchain 2.0 can do anything, basically. You can write programs to decide what it does. So I'll try to give you some examples. I skipped one chapter. Okay, we'll get back to it if you want how it works. Please raise your hands if you're interested to know. I told you there is a magical thing that when I transact the money to Pablo, everyone in the world not only knows that, but correctly update their ledger, their records. And the magical thing is that I cannot attack it. That's the magical thing, because I can show you very easily how I would like to attack it, to cheat the system, and then the magical thing is how the system recovers from that attack. That's the magical thing. So please raise your hand if you are interested to understand the technology on a rough level. Okay, so I'll go back to that chapter. Yeah, so I'll go back to that chapter then. Okay, so let's do it before we dive into blockchain 2.0. Let's do that. So we'll take it step by step, slowly, and if I lose you, just raise your hand. Even if you don't have a question, just raise your hand if we just lost each other. Okay? You can throw a tomato if you want. So, okay, how does it work? So now, all of us in the room, we are putting a software on our machine, okay? The same software. We're playing a game. So the software contains 3 components, roughly, okay? 2 of which, by the way, are very old and well known for decades. Well, one for decade and another one for decades. And the third component is really the innovation that made by Satoshi Nakamoto. By the way, did I tell you about Satoshi Nakamoto yesterday or not? I didn't, right? I did? I didn't? See, okay, see, great. So Satoshi Nakamoto, the inventor of Bitcoin, nobody knows who is it. So the third component is really the innovation. So let me tell you what are the 3 components. The first component is just a gossip protocol, a peer-to-peer communication protocol. Who knows what BitTorrent is? Please raise your hand. Okay, so most people don't know what's BitTorrent. I'll tell you. BitTorrent, you know, remember that, you know, when the internet came out, everyone started to share files. Like I downloaded, well, sorry. Firstly, all the artists, songwriters, you know, movies came to the internet. Then I could purchase that movie, but then I can just distribute to my friends, right? And nobody can prevent me. And people did that. They upload websites that gave for free content that they purchased from someone else. But then it was prevented by law, and then governments with the forces of the production companies or the pressure from the production companies shut down those websites and sued the people that opened those websites. And then someone designed a new system that does the same thing, basically peer-to-peer communication, but in a distributed way, in a decentralized way, which means that there is no way to shut that down. That's called BitTorrent. That came, I think, 2001, I think. And basically, BitTorrent, up to that date, you can find on BitTorrent any movie, you know, book, song for free, because people share that content, and a lot of governments try to shut that down, but it's impossible to shut that down. That's just to show you how powerful distributed technology is. There are so many forces that want to shut down BitTorrent, and they simply cannot. The only reason why it's not that popular because it's not that user-friendly. So it's not that popular, but it's user-friendly enough. So it's just a kind of a gossip protocol or a peer-to-peer communication protocol. Well, gossip protocol and BitTorrent is a little bit different, but I'm just putting them on the same class, which is to say we can communicate in a peer-to-peer way. I communicate with you, you communicate with him, he communicate with her, in a fully decentralized fashion. There is no centralized server that is responsible for the communication, and also for the file sharing. Okay? So that's the first component. Simple, I think, right? It's just peer-to-peer communication, no centralized servers. That's well known already. Please raise your hand if we're stuck, if we lost each other here. Perfect. So, second component. Second component is even older than that. It's like 40 years old. It was invented, you probably heard about it. It was invented by 3 scientists. Actually, one of them I know. Which is basically cryptographic, well, there are different ways to call it, but cryptographic signatures. I would like to call it data integrity. Okay? They use cryptography, some topic, use cryptography to allow people to send digital message and sign them. It's called digital signature, okay? Sign those messages in a way that is 100% well authenticated. So if I send you a message, you can be sure, 100% sure that I did send a message and not someone else. Because over the internet, when you get a message and I claim, okay, I want to give you 1 apple and I sign Matan, there is no way you can actually know that Matan has sent you the message. Someone can intervene in the middle, can cut me, send you any message that he wants, and there is no way you can know that. So cryptography was used for digital signatures and data integrity to just do that. I can today send you a message and you can know for 100% sure that I sent the message. That's quite incredible. And that's known for like 40 years. Like the whole internet security is basically relied on that. Okay? So that's the second component. So remember, we can now communicate in a peer-to-peer fashion, and we can also communicate in a well-authenticated way. I can send you, so we are almost there, and that state of affairs was already there for a long time. And still we didn't have the digital cash, which was an open question for a long, long time. And we'll get there to the third component. So we can hold public ledger, we can hold public records, right, of how many apples each of us in the audience, in the room holds. And whenever I want to send 2 apples to Pablo, I just tell everyone, hey everyone, I sent 2 apples to Pablo. Everyone check the message. They check the encryption, the digital signature. They make sure they verify that that's me, and then they update their records. And that's how we maintain public records. So far, so good? Okay. So now to the most crucial element. To understand the importance and the greatness of blockchain, I should tell you now how I'm going to attack that system, okay? That I just described. I'll tell you how I'm going to attack it, to break it. And then we'll have to have the third part to recover. So the way I'm going to attack it is the following. This is the right hand of the network. This is the left side of the network, okay? Now, I'm peer-to-peer connected to everyone or to both sides or to people in both sides. Now I'm going to do the following. I have just 1 apple. And I will send to this side of the network the message, I'm sending the apple to Thomas. Okay? And I'm going to send to this side of the network the message, I'm sending the apples to Pablo. Okay? I'm trying to cheat the system. I'm trying to send the apple twice. Right? Now, I don't have 2 apples. So those who get, so half of the network will get the message that I send the apple to Thomas, and they will reduce 1 apple from me, will give 1 apple to Thomas. And then, after some time, the message propagating the network, then they will get the message that I send the apple to Pablo. But then they will look to say, oh, but you don't have apples anymore. You cannot say that, and they will cancel the transaction because I don't have more apples. The other side of the network will do the opposite. They will firstly see the message that I send the apple to Pablo. They will reduce the number of apples I have from 1 to 0. They will add 1 apple to Pablo. And 1 second later, they will also get the message that I sent an apple to Thomas. And then they will see, but you don't have apples. So that transaction is canceled. So you see, now I split the network. Now half of the network thinks that Thomas has an apple, another apple, and the other half of the network thinks that Pablo has another apple. And if we want to maintain consensus, if we want to maintain public records that we all constantly agree on, the network organically, with no central coordination, with no direction from anyone, the network needs to recover on what is the right and what the right statement and what is the wrong statement. Although I send them in the same time, just to different edges of the network. But the network, as an organic network, need to organically recover from that failure mode. That's like, it sounds like a tiny problem, but that's a huge problem. That was an open question for decades, basically. Okay? Before I tell you how we solve that, let's see if we are on the same page right now. So raise your hands if we lost each other or anything. The trick, now, here, that's the third component. That's the ingenuity of blockchain. I won't get to the little details of that component for 2 reasons. For 3 reasons. One, it is a little bit more complicated. 2, it's not that relevant to understand the concept of blockchain. It's a technical detail. And 3, it changes from different blockchains. So I can tell you how it works for the first blockchain, but now people are doing different blockchains that it works differently. So just to show that it's not universal, okay? So it's less of importance. But just roughly to tell you roughly how the original blockchain is working, it's relying on a protocol that is called proof of work. Proof of work, which by the way was also there before Bitcoin. Satoshi did not invent proof of work. He just put all of the things in the same box, but he did not invent any of the components. Proof of work is a way to algorithmically and mathematically prove that some software has been running a lot. Okay? So, which means that I download the software to my machine, I run it a lot, I waste energy, I run it a lot, and I can prove that I run that software a lot. Okay? That's what I call proof of work. So that algorithm, proof of work, is being used for one thing. It's being used to choose from everyone every 10 minutes to choose a herald. How do you say herald in Spanish? I don't know. I didn't know the word herald until a couple of days ago in English. So we need to choose one herald that we all agree and for sure know that this is the herald, this is the winner. Okay? And we use proof of work. It's kind of a lottery machine, basically. It's a lottery machine. So we all run that lottery machine, and on average, every 10 minutes, someone in the audience will win that lottery. Okay? And he can prove mathematically that he won the lottery. Okay? So every 10 minutes, let's say you win the lottery. Okay? So now you are spreading the message, I won the lottery. Okay? And everyone knows that she has won the lottery. Together with that message, you take all of the messages, the important messages, the transactions we call them, all of the claims that you heard in the last 10 minutes. Okay? So the head of your message is, hey guys, I won the lottery, I'm the herald. The rest of your message is, and these are all of the transactions that I have heard, and this is the order. This is the order of transaction that I have heard. Okay? Now you wrap that up, you digitally sign it with your key, so everybody knows that it's you, and we call that a block. Okay? Now all of us are opening that message. Now we know everything. We know that she's the herald because she has won the lottery. We know all of the transactions and the order that she saw them. And now we define, she is defining the truth. Okay? What she has seen, that's the truth. That's the order. And we append that block to the rest of the blocks of the previous blocks. And that's why it's called blockchain. It's a chain of blocks. Okay? Every 10 minutes, there is a new herald which is reporting about the objective truth. There is no the point is that there is no objective truth. There is no way to define what's before what. The importance is to have a truth. It doesn't matter which, but to have a truth. And each 10 minutes, the herald is dictating the truth. That's basically the idea. So that's a little bit more complicated, but that's also why it's called blockchain. It's just a chain of blocks. Every few minutes, and now with Ethereum it's a few seconds, every few seconds, someone is reporting about the block. Now how the herald is chosen, now we are moving from proof of work algorithm to proof of stake algorithm. I can even tell you that I think that the choice of herald, like having a herald, is not fundamental to blockchain. I have ideas of building blockchain without heralds, but the point is that how do we agree about the truth and the order of things? That's the importance. Okay. Yeah. So that's very roughly. Maybe just to say one. I want to. If you have questions, I want to hear them. I won't take them now. But just to say one thing, proof of work is very, very well criticized for a good reason. Okay. The reason is that we are wasting a lot of energy in doing this lottery in all of the world. Okay. Now that's not negligible. The amount of electricity today. So okay, how big this movement is? How big? Just the Bitcoin. How big it is? The Bitcoin. The Bitcoin has computing power in that network that is greatest than all of the supercomputers in the world. Okay? And that's why it's so powerful. Even the United States government cannot attack the Bitcoin system because it's so computationally huge and powerful that it's just unattackable. Okay? It's very, very big. On the other hand, there is a price to that. If we said that the way to participate is to wasting energy, to doing unneeded lottery, so how much electricity do we waste for proof of work? So it is estimated today that the size of Bitcoin network is using as much as electricity as the state of Ireland. Okay? So just to maintain public records that are decentralized and unattackable, we're wasting the electricity of Ireland. Okay? So a lot of people are criticizing blockchain for that. And that's totally right. And the answer to that is that we are all aware of that, and our people are hardly are working hard to resolve that problem and to come up with alternative protocols that are not using that electricity. And we already have a lot of mileage on that. So there are already out in the market protocols, alternative protocols. There are many of them. Many of them are also under the title of proof of stake. Although there are many different proof of stake protocols, they are still evolving. So we don't have yet like the perfect solution. We have many solutions, but they're not yet perfect. They are improving over time. Okay? But the short answer is that this is something that will be resolved in the near future. Yeah, so let's move on. Blockchain 2.0. So I told you, now you can write, the blockchain is the lowest infrastructure, and we can write software that is basically, now not only that we all agree about the records, now that's a big leap, okay, you ready? Not only we agree about the record, we agree about the software. So now it's not a decentralized record or ledger, it's a decentralized computer. We all run the same software. So when I upload the software, now the messages are more complicated. I can send a message of transaction, but I can also send a message of a software. I can say, look, I want to play that game, and that's the software that controls that game. And now all of us will upload that software to their machine, and we will play the same game. And that enables us to play a new kind of game, which is called decentralized applications. It's like a computer that can write, you can make applications on a computer, but it's a decentralized application. So let me show you, this is a hard leap, this is a difficult leap to make. So let me explain it through examples, okay? Let's start with the simplest example. So the simplest example to explain, we are talking about here about economic interaction, right? Between people. So let's take the simplest economic interaction beyond transactions. Transaction is the simplest, okay, we covered that. Let's take the second simplest, next to simplest example. Bet. Let's make a bet. Who wants to make a bet with me? Okay, great, let's make a bet. Let's bet that tomorrow the temperature in Tenerife is, I say, above 25 degrees. The maximum temperature at noon is above 25 degrees. You say it's below 25 degrees, okay? Let's place that bet. I'm putting $10, 10 digital dollars actually, or digital euros, and you put 10 digital euros, okay? And we want to make that bet. And if it's above 25, I get the 20 euros, you get it. If it's below, you get the 20 euros. Simple? That's the simplest economical interaction between us. Now, for the entire history, now this is, it sounds technical, but this is a big statement, okay? In the entire history, there was no way to place that bet without having an intermediary, with having a third party that will keep, I mean, to have a fully trustless bet. So I don't trust you, you need to trust me. We have a third party, we all trust him. So two things, notice, for the entire history, we had to have a third party, and we had to trust him. Two things, okay? He will take the money. We agree, a priori, we agree the way to resolve the bet. So, for example, at noon, he opened the computer, the website, he looked at the internet, he looked at 5 websites, different websites, which report about the temperature. He averaged the temperature. If it's above 25, he gives me the money. If it's below 25, he gives you the money. That was the only way to place that bet for the entire history of humankind, okay? Now with blockchain, we can do it differently. We don't need the third party, and we don't need the trust. We write a software, like 5 lines of code. We say, at noon, check, okay, firstly fetch the money. I send $5, digital dollars, euros, you said 10 digital euros. Secondly, tomorrow at noon, look at those websites, read the temperature from here, 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 and there, average the temperature. If it's above 10, if it's above 25, send me the 20 euros. If it's below 25, send you the 20 euros. Now we deploy that software on the blockchain. We send our euros to that software. We send the euros to the blockchain, okay? And that's it. From that point on, this software is self-executing. It's unstoppable. Not even us, we cannot even stop it, unless we coded that. We can also code that that are the ways to stop that bet. But if we haven't coded in the code the possibility to stop the machine, it is unstoppable because everyone in the world will now run the software as written by code. So we can place that bet, we can do this economic interaction without any third party, without any trust factor. We can just do that. That's it, end of the game. So basically, these are self-executing programs. They are fed by input, by transactional input. They are enforced by code. This is basically, a lot of implication for the blockchain is for law. You know, we are used to law that is enforced by people. Blockchain gives you law that is enforced by code. The code enforces the law. There is no need anymore, at least for the jurisdiction of the blockchain, there is no need to enforce anything. The code enforces itself. So there is just no need for law in that sense. The whole law paradigm is shifting because of that. Trusted agreements. So I told you about betting. We can make contracts. I can make contract that, for example, insurance. Okay, last week we came back from Shanghai. Some people wrote a really nice program. The program is doing insurance of flight cancellation. Okay? So you can send money to insure yourself to the software, and then whoever is having his flight canceled, and then the blockchain is looking at the website to see if the flight has been canceled. And if it's been canceled, you get back your money. It's kind of like thing. And this whole insurance between people is happening by itself, self-executing. There is no company, there is no server, nothing. Okay? So all sort of agreement, contracts, market exchange, derivatives, crowdfunding. We can do crowdfunding. You can send your money to that project. And if, you know there is in crowdfunding, it says like in Kickstarter, if we will raise such and such money, then we take the money. If we raise below, we don't take the money. You know, you're familiar with that? It's like Kickstarter. So with blockchain, you don't need to have someone, a server that controls that conditions. You can code it into the blockchain. Then you don't need to trust that entity that will actually follow the rules that it promised to follow. You don't need to trust that entity that it will not change the rules next year. You simply don't need to trust. It's self-enforceable, self-executable. Okay, so that all this paradigm has brought about the notion of decentralized applications. So, for example, I got to this field at the end of 2013. I was doing my postdoc in theoretical physics at the Technion in Israel. And then I was doing kind of social entrepreneurship on the side, and I had an idea to work on to produce a ride-sharing application, kind of like Uber. Who doesn't know what is Uber? Please raise your hand if you doesn't know what is Uber. Okay, you know Uber. So it's kind of like Uber, but social Uber. So that it's not like to pay for taxi driver. It's like I'm going to my work and I can just take some people on the ride with me. So I wanted to work out this program with friends, ride sharing application. And I won't tell you all the story, but basically we have realized that we need something like the blockchain before we knew about the blockchain. That's how we discovered the blockchain. It was the end of 2013. And then we started to develop a different thing. We started to develop a decentralized ride sharing application. So how does it look at decentralized ride-sharing application? So Uber is a centralized ride-sharing application. How does it look as decentralized ride-sharing application? So the difference is that the decentralized ride-sharing application doesn't live anywhere. What does it mean it doesn't live anywhere? There is no server. So the software is running on every computer, on every mobile. So who controls it? The code controls it. The codes match. If I need a ride and Thomas is offering a ride, the code is finding us and just matching us. But then who gets the value of that? Like, who gets the value of that network? We. Those who produce the value. For example, you remember I told you about value systems? So what is the value system in ride sharing? What is valuable in ride sharing? So I'll tell you what we thought is valuable. In ride sharing, there is a huge problem that nobody has managed to solve so far, which is how to build the critical mass of participants The critical, by the way, this is the project was called Lazooz. This was the application. So there is a huge problem in ride sharing, social ride sharing. Nobody has able to solve it yet. Even Google. Google is trying to solve it now. There is a huge critical mass of participants that you need to have in the system, geographically in the same place, before it actually works, that I can trust the system, that I can go to my work, I will reach my work with, with 2 rides or 3 rides, okay? And before that, nobody will participate, so there's a chicken and egg problem. If you don't have enough people, it won't work. If it doesn't work, people will not come. So how do you break that chicken and egg loop? There's a huge challenge. So we said, okay, if that's the challenge, then what's valuable is to have people participate in a non-working system, right? So we call them Lazooz miners. So we said that if you are downloading an application and keeping it open, reporting about your location, and willing to play the game, although there's no yet game, if you're just doing that, you're getting tokens, like Bitcoins, but these tokens, Zoos tokens. And these Zoos tokens, when the network will evolve and succeed, they will have value because people will need to pay with those tokens to get rides. So they will get value. And if you participate early, you get more of that. So that's how we incentivize the good action in that network. So that's a network for ride sharing. So we incentivize early adopters of ride sharing. That's the value system. So this is called decentralized application, basically. Okay, so the last thing is public organizations. So you mentioned governments. So what is the limitation of blockchain? The limitation of blockchain, that remember, blockchain is self-executing code, but it's just code, right? For example, it can distribute value, it can generate value systems that can measure. For example, the fact that I'm downloading application and keeping it open, that's something that the code can measure, and that's why I can distribute value to participators. But what if we want to make a community here in Tenerife, and we want to incentivize people to help the elderly community? Can a code measure those actions? What if we want to build together a kindergarten? And I will come and work for a whole day and we'll build a beautiful wall. Can a code measure that? Or what if, even if it's a digital contribution, we want to make a journal together, and I'm writing an article, but who is measuring if the article makes sense, it doesn't make sense, it's long, it's short, it's good, it's bad? A code cannot measure that, right? It can measure that, I just uploaded the file, but it cannot measure the quality of the file. So you see, the point is, if you want to take those ideas to the real world of human beings that participate, of subjective value, not objective value that code can read, but subjective value that people can appreciate. If you want to have value systems that are not coded, but value systems that are emergent, that are subjective, then for that you need another protocol. You need another, and this was a big question. Because back then, so during the project of Lazooz, we started to think about those ideas, and the more time went along, I found those questions even more important and interesting than the ride-sharing application itself. And we're developing at the same time. So then, at the beginning of 2015, I decided to quit the project of Lazooz and basically to open Backfeed, a new company that basically to develop that kind of protocol. And that's a big challenge. How do you, because you see, well, the intuition is easy, right? Let's say I'm contributing an article, and now I want the system, the network, to give me some tokens for that article. So how will we measure the quality of the articles? Well, kind of like voting system, right? Pablo will say what he thinks he thinks that I should get 7 tokens. Thomas thinks that I should get 3 tokens, and everyone thinks that I should get some such tokens. And then the system needs to decide about the right answer. Like how decide that? What, just a vote? Is it a democratic vote? The point that democracy doesn't work on the internet, right? Because remember, it's a decentralized system. There is no centralized server. Nobody can stop me from opening 20 identities, for example. Nobody can stop me from opening 20 identities. So how do we count votes? How we define, if my vote equals your vote? Maybe not. Maybe we have different experiences, and so on. So I'll take it that just as much as the blockchain was needed to be resistant to these kind of attacks that I told you about, now the decentralized decision-making protocol need to be resistant against another attacks that frauding the system. Okay? So this is we call decentralized governance, or this we call that the Backfeed protocol, and basically it's something that goes on top of the blockchain to allow communities and networks, global networks, not like small communities, but even global networks, to run their own organizations in a fashion. And I will tell you a little bit, like in the rest of the 10 minutes, I will tell you about what kind of organization we can build with those. We will be able to build when it's all working, and how it's really changed the world. And then we get to governance. Okay? So that's the first layer of decentralized governance, collective intelligence, emergent value systems. It's at the research stage still. That was the first experiment that launched in the blockchain space. We were working on similar things, but this group of people have launched before us. They made amazing work. So it was launched by one of the founders of Ethereum, and he had a lot of reputation. They launched that project. It's a decentralized investment fund, okay? Now, in practice, it was very premature. It was not fully decentralized. It was not fully scalable in operation. It was not fully resistant to attacks. But it was very exciting because it was talking about the vision that we are speaking about for like 2 years now, and it was the first experimentation alive. And it was so exciting that this decentralized fund, investment fund, has raised from people in the community $150 million in 4 weeks. Okay? So that was the most exciting experiment that took place in the last year in blockchain. Unfortunately, so when nobody expected that amount of money, because they kind of did it very quickly, not checking too much. And then when $150 million entered the fund, which was a kind of decentralized fund, then people start to be concerned and analyzing whether the system is really resistant, whether the governance mechanism there is really well working. And very, very soon, like in a few days, people reported analysis that's showing that there is a full of attack vectors that are not covered in that. And then because we are kind of working on that field for like 2 years, for a year and a half then, and we started to work on correcting the protocol, basically, to rebuilding the governance mechanism for that investment fund. But then someone else found anonymous person found a kind of bug in the code. I will not get into it, but a sophisticated bug in the code, sophisticated in the sense that it's a bug and it's not a bug. We'll not get there. If you want to know more about that, it's very exciting. I will tell you later about it. But the point is that what happened then is that he abused that bug and stole $60 million from the fund, and then the whole project has collapsed in 4 hours, and basically that was the end of that experiment. Which, by the way, there were very exciting consequences to that experiment. So there are many exciting topics I won't be able to cover, but just so that I'll seed the keywords so that one day you'll read about it and look for it. But there is a notion that is called fork in a blockchain, which you remember I told you about the fact that I can try to attack the system and to split it into 2 parts. So the blockchain prevents that. But still it can happen organically. Like if actually people disagree about something, the system can really fork. That's why we call it fork, okay? And it's really interesting social concept, like why fork happen, how it happens. And actually we never had a really, really big fork. And that attack actually made a fork in the Ethereum network. Because the whole idea of a blockchain is that it's ruled by code. And when that guy has stolen $60 million, the network has kind of forked ideologically. Because some people said, you see, since blockchain is on the computers of everyone, if we all just agree to delete the account of the attacker, we can just delete it, and that's it, we take back the money. But then other people said, no, blockchain is supposed to be run by code. If he was able to exploit the system, he should take the money. We should stay ideologically to keeping running by code. And the network actually splitted, and 90% of the network has deleted the account of the thief, and 10% of the network has kept that account of the thief. And now we have 2 Ethereum networks that run in parallel, disagree, have different tokens and different values in the market. So Ethereum, the Ethereum that has deleted the account is just called Ethereum. It has a market cap of $1 billion. If you just, the value of the token in the market times the number of tokens. And the Ethereum Classic, those who kept the code untouched, they call the Ethereum Classic, and they have just a market cap of $150 million, something like that. So both are very big networks. So now this is a real fork happening in life, and it's a fascinating social experiment, basically. That's actually that's the basic decentralized governance mechanism, fork, because the network organically chose what to follow. So that's Backfeed, the platform for decentralized organization. We are basically trying to build a generic platform that on top of which you can deploy. So my vision for, far in the future, the vision is that just as you can enter Facebook and click a button and open a new Facebook group, then on Backfeed you can be able to click a button and open a new decentralized organization. Okay? So what does a decentralized organization look like? What can it be? So it's open, spontaneous, anyone can contribute value. So for example, one example is a decentralized collaboration. Imagine thousands of people, millions of people are building stuff together. Imagine that millions of people can build software together. How powerful that movement can be. Like, Linux, for example. Linux was built by tens of thousands of software developers together in a centralized way or semi-centralized way, but it was so powerful, and every machine that you are holding today is having a Linux component. What will happen if millions of people will organize together to produce software together, to produce project together? How it will look like? How powerful it is with respect to today's ecosystem of entrepreneurship. So it's open, spontaneous collaboration. Anyone can contribute value. Then the collective intelligence governance mechanism decides how to distribute that value to people, like what is the worth of value that people are bringing in and how much ownership they have in the network. There is no central company. There is no one to own the network. The network is owned by people. The more you contribute value, the more ownership of wealth and governance that you have. The whole basic protocol is relying on a reputation system, decentralized reputation system. So different networks have different reputation system and value system. And the value system is basically how much financial ownership you own in the network. And the reputation system is how much influential ownership you have in the network. And in a sense, those tokens are kind of like equity of a company. It's a new entity, it's a new creature. It's not a company, but in the early stage, you can think of the tokens as kind of like the equity in the company, the holdings in the company. But anyone are participants, so there is no one there to exploit you. So now, for example, I'll tell you about decentralized insurance, but let's take it for simple for Facebook. There is now running a company, friends of mine, that they are building decentralized Facebook competitor, Scenario. They just raised $3 million from the public. So how it would look like if you had a Facebook network, but without Facebook the company. A decentralized social media network that is owned by the participants. So if you are putting a post that is very popular, and let's say that the network has chosen to keep advertisement, maybe the network chosen to not keep advertisement, but let's say that it was choosing to keep advertisement, and now there's a lot of value created by that very popular post of you. Who gets that value? You get that value, or whoever contributed to that value creation. There is no external entity to exploit that money, because there is no external to that. It's autonomous entity. It's inclusive entity. So whoever contributes value, receiving back that value. If you are writing blog post, which is very successful, you are getting the value. If you are uploading a video to YouTube, to decentralized YouTube, you get the value. You see, that kind of feature has a much, much better alignment of interests. than a company. Today's economical structure is there is a huge misalignment of interest between the company and the users. And that's again like a Prisoner's dilemma point, kind of thing. So that's a decentralized insurance. That's something that we are thinking about to build. Millions of people insuring each other. You see, if we all put the premium on the blockchain, and then I have a claim to the insurance, and then it releases money to me, then people participate in assessing that claim. Why do we need insurance companies? So the same thing for lending, for banking, for anything that you want. So basically, decentralized everything. You can decentralize media, journalism, no more centralized power about holding information, journalism, media. No more centralized power about searching. I told you before, Google doesn't really show you the whole network. It shows you a slice of a network. No more control of that kind. So decentralized search engine, decentralized investment. We are not even aware about the economics, the global economy. There are opportunities that are accessible for very big investors, but are not accessible for the little person. So when I have money in my bank account, I cannot get, I can hardly get like 2% a year for that money. But there are some opportunities, investment opportunities that give you every year 20% on your money. Every year. There are some companies that do every year 20% on the money. But I cannot access that. Some people can, I cannot. This is totally opening it up. The opportunities are all spread and public to everyone. Energy grid, there is already a working experiment in Brooklyn, decentralized energy grid. I'm producing solar power. I don't need everything. I just sell it to my neighbors. They produce, they sell it back to me. Decentralized energy grid. Decentralized lending, again, peer-to-peer lending, no company in the middle. And basically, I'll wrap up with that. Thanks.